My long-distance boyfriend ghosted me the day after I told him I was flying to visit, then gave another woman my favorite hoodie. When I finally confronted him, he laughed and said, "You're insane." I stayed silent. That was 6 months ago. This morning, he was crying in my voicemail. My long-distance boyfriend ghosted me the day after I told him I was flying over to visit. I met Roy through my old roommate Kara, who lived across the hall from him in this apartment complex with terrible parking and even worse Wi-Fi. We stayed close after college, and she invited me over for a weekend when I was back in town. We had wine, gossip, bad takeout, and at one point, this guy from across the hall knocked to borrow a wine opener. That was the start of Roy and me. At first, I thought I was lucky. He was funny and knew random trivia about whales and space and always paid for dinner. But when I flew back home, things changed. He got quiet, then overly sweet. I blamed it on the distance and told myself if I was better at communication, maybe he'd be more consistent. Kara never liked him. She didn't say it outright, but she had that pause every time I brought him up. The pause that said, "I'm not saying anything, but I know things." When I finally asked, she said, "He's not a bad guy. He's just good at being whoever someone wants him to be," which honestly felt worse. We dated long distance for almost 2 years. Every time I visited, he was perfect. Flowers on the nightstand, movie nights, arm around me like he was keeping me safe. But when I went back home, it was like he unplugged. If I asked for a call, he'd sigh and say work was draining. If I sent a photo, he'd heart it but never respond. So I tested something. I made a fake group chat with a few of our mutuals and casually mentioned that I thought he was ring shopping. I even said I'd be in his city soon to help take care of my aunt, who was having a minor procedure. Nothing dramatic, just enough to see what he'd do. He responded with a thumbs up. That's it. The next day, he stopped answering me entirely. I told Kara everything, and without saying a word, she tossed her spare key on the table and said, "Keys are under the mat, stay as long as you want." She had a ring cam in the hallway that pointed directly at his door. The first night, nothing happened. I stayed in Kara's apartment, quietly watching Netflix while refreshing his texts. Still nothing. The second night, I got a notification from Ring and watched a woman walk into his apartment at 11:22 p.m. Tall, long braids, red heels. She didn't leave until the morning. I took a screenshot. Night 3, same thing, different girl. This one was wearing my hoodie, like my actual hoodie. The blue one I left there 2 visits ago. He must have given it to her or said it was his. Either way, that one made my throat close up. I could have confronted him then. Could have texted something cold and final, but I wanted him to feel what I felt. I wanted everyone who thought he was a sweet, soft-spoken, emotionally intelligent man to see who he really was. That's when I found out he was hosting a live stream for his job. He worked in nonprofit marketing and was doing this big charity campaign. There'd be coworkers, donors, friends. The theme was something about building trust and community. It was honestly too perfect. I had the hallway footage and screenshots of Roy with the girls. I logged into the live stream with a burner account. He started the event smiling like he was everybody's favorite nice guy. He told stories about why honesty mattered in relationships. I waited until the second half to screen share. First, I played the clip of red heels walking in, then hoodie girl. Each video had him saying they were the only girl for him. I watched people leave one by one. His co-host kept talking over the noise, trying to salvage it, but Roy looked stunned, like someone had ripped off his mask in public. I got texts from him within 10 minutes. "What the hell is wrong with you? This was my job. You're insane." I didn't respond. Then Kara called. Apparently, 2 girls he'd been seeing reached out to her directly. They'd seen the live stream and recognized themselves. One even said he told her I was just his stalker ex, just some girl who never took a hint. After that, he spiraled, started calling mutuals, spinning stories, said I hacked his Ring account, told people I edited the footage. One of our friends messaged me and said, "He's trying to say you're obsessed with him." 2 nights later, someone put dog poop in front of Kara's door. She was out of town, so I just called the cops. They didn't find anyone but wrote up a report. He never apologized, never owned it, but the nonprofit pulled him from the campaign. I deleted my social media and focused on healing. Therapy twice a week, walking more, laughing again. The silence felt good. Then, a few months later, I got a message from a girl I'd never seen before. She said, "Hi, sorry if this is weird. I think I'm dating the guy you exposed. I think I'm pregnant, and I think he's dangerous." Her name was Mia. Her profile showed a young woman, maybe 22, with curly hair and a nervous smile. I stared at that message for an hour before responding. Part of me wanted to block her and move on with my life. I was finally feeling better. My therapist had just told me I was making real progress. Did I really want to get pulled back into Roy's drama? But I couldn't ignore someone who might be in trouble, especially not someone carrying a child. I responded with my phone number and told her to call me when she felt safe. She called that night while sitting in her car in a Target parking lot. Mia's voice was shaky as she explained that she'd been dating Roy for about 4 months. She found out she was pregnant 2 weeks ago. When she told him, he started acting strange, checking her phone, questioning where she went, getting angry over small things. Once, he'd thrown a glass against the wall when she came home late from work. Then she saw a comment on an old Instagram post that mentioned the live stream incident. She went looking and found the recording someone had saved. That's how she found me. She wanted to know if what she saw was real, or if I really was just a crazy ex like Roy claimed. My stomach dropped. I didn't know what to do. Kara told me to stay out of it when I called her for advice. Said it could be a trap. Roy trying to get evidence that I was harassing him or his new girlfriend. But something in Mia's voice sounded genuinely scared. I agreed to meet her at a coffee shop the next day. Public place, lots of witnesses. I brought printouts of the Ring footage and screenshots of his texts. Probably overkill, but I wanted to be prepared. I got there early and picked a table near the exit, just in case. When Mia walked in, I immediately recognized her. She wasn't one of the women from the Ring footage, but she had the same look in her eyes that I used to have. That mixture of hope and doubt that comes from loving someone who keeps disappointing you. I sat down with Mia and ordered us both coffees. She looked exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and chipped nail polish. I recognized that look. The one where you're so stressed you forget basic self-care. Been there. "I wasn't sure you'd actually come," she said, fidgeting with a sugar packet. Her hands were shaking slightly, the blue veins visible beneath her pale skin. I placed the folder of evidence on the table between us, but didn't open it yet. Instead, I asked her to tell me more about her relationship with Roy. The story was painfully familiar. The charming beginning, the gradual isolation, the way he'd make her feel crazy for questioning inconsistencies. Classic Roy playbook. He told me his ex, you, was obsessed with him, Mia explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "Said you edited videos to make him look bad because he broke up with you." I nodded and slowly opened the folder. "That's what he wants you to believe." For the next hour, I showed her everything. The Ring footage, the text messages, screenshots of conversations with the other women. I even had the email from his workplace about his suspension pending an investigation into his conduct. Her face crumpled more with each piece of evidence, her fingers tracing over the dates and timestamps as if searching for some explanation that would make it all untrue. "I'm 7 weeks pregnant," she whispered, hands protectively covering her stomach. "I don't know what to do." I reached across the table but stopped short of touching her. "Whatever you decide about the pregnancy is your choice, but you should know who you're dealing with." Mia wiped her eyes with a crumpled napkin and promised to think about everything. We exchanged numbers and I told her to call me anytime. As she left, her shoulders hunched against the weight of what she'd learned. I felt a weight lift off my own. I'd done what I could. The rest was up to her. 3 days passed with no word from Mia. I figured she'd made her decision, whatever that was. was. I went back to my routine. Work, therapy, trying to date again. I'd actually matched with this guy named Marcus on Hinge who seemed promising. He was a literature professor with kind eyes and no red flags in our messages. We were planning to meet that weekend for coffee at a bookstore cafe. Then my phone rang at 11 p.m. on Thursday. It was Mia, sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. Between gasps, she told me Roy had gone through her phone while she was in the shower. He'd seen our texts, found the pictures I'd given her. He's furious, she choked out. He said I betrayed him, that I fell for your lies. My blood ran cold. That familiar icy dread I thought I'd left behind. Where are you now? Are you safe? She was at her sister's place. Roy had stormed out of their apartment after the fight, but he'd been calling nonstop, threatening to ruin her if she didn't come back. Classic abuser tactics. I told him I needed to think, she said, her voice raw from crying. But he keeps saying if I leave him, he'll make sure I regret it. I suggested she block his number, but she was afraid that would make him angrier. We talked for almost an hour, going through safety plans and resources. I sent her links to domestic violence hotlines and legal aid. By the end of the call, she seemed calmer, more resolved. Thank you, she said before hanging up. I don't know what I would have done without you. I went to bed feeling like I'd helped someone avoid the pain I'd experienced. Like maybe all this garbage with Roy had a purpose after all. I slept better that night than I had in months, the constant knot in my stomach finally loosening. The next morning, I woke up to 37 missed calls from Roy. My stomach dropped. He'd never contacted me directly since the livestream incident where I'd exposed his cheating. I checked my voicemail with shaking hands. The first message was just breathing, heavy and deliberate. The second was him calling me names, his voice slurring slightly like he'd been drinking. By the third, he was threatening to expose me as a stalker to everyone we knew. I blocked his number immediately and called Kara in a panic. She answered on the first ring, like she'd been waiting for my call. He's been messaging me too, she said before I could explain, saying you're harassing his pregnant girlfriend, that you're trying to break him up. My head spun. That's not what happened. Mia contacted me. I know, Kara assured me. I told him to fuck off, but he's reaching out to everyone from our old friend group, spinning some story about you not being able to let go. I sank onto my couch, suddenly exhausted. What does he want from me? It's been months. Control, Kara said simply. You took it from him publicly, and he can't stand it. After hanging up, I checked my email. 3 messages from old friends asking if I was okay, saying Roy had contacted them with concerns about my mental health. 2 from mutual acquaintances asking for my side of whatever was happening. 1 from my boss forwarding an anonymous email claiming I was unstable and harassing people. This was bad, really bad. I called Mia immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I texted her, Roy's contacting everyone. What's happening? Are you okay? No response. I spent the day in a fog of anxiety, jumping every time my phone buzzed. By evening, I'd received messages from 15 different people about Roy's claims. I drafted a simple response explaining that his pregnant girlfriend had contacted me for help, not the other way around. Most people seemed to believe me, but the damage to my reputation was spreading like an oil slick. Around 8 p.m., my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone, and after the day I'd had, I was on edge. I peeked through the peephole and saw Mia standing there, hugging herself in the hallway, her face partially hidden by her long brown hair. I opened the door cautiously. Mia, what are you doing here? Her eyes were red and puffy. Can I come in, please? Against my better judgment, I let her in. She perched on the edge of my couch like she might bolt at any moment, her purse clutched tightly against her chest. I'm so sorry, she blurted out. This is all my fault. The story spilled out of her in a rush. After our coffee meeting, she'd confronted Roy with the evidence. He denied everything, of course. Called me crazy. Said I'd manipulated the footage. When that didn't work, he switched tactics. Started crying, begging for another chance, promising therapy, saying the baby needed its father. I wanted to believe him, she admitted, staring at her hands, a small tear tracking down her cheek. It's easier than facing the truth. But then he'd found our texts, gone ballistic, started contacting everyone I knew. She showed me her phone, 63 missed calls from him in the past day. I didn't know what to do, she said, her voice breaking. My sister's scared to have me stay with her now. He showed up at her work. I felt a chill run down my spine. This was escalating fast. Have you considered a restraining order? She nodded miserably. I don't have proof of anything serious enough. He's careful, never leaves marks, never puts threats in writing. We sat in silence for a moment, both lost in thought. Then my phone pinged with a text from an unknown number. I see you found my girl. Tell her to answer her fucking phone. I showed Mia the message. Her face went pale. How does he know I'm here? That's when I realized he must have followed her. I jumped up to check the windows, carefully peeking through the blinds. Sure enough, there was Roy's blue Honda parked across the street, the interior light revealing his silhouette. He's outside, I whispered, my heart pounding. We need to call the police. Mia grabbed my arm, her fingernails digging in slightly. No, please, he'll just charm them like he does everyone. They'll think we're overreacting. She wasn't wrong. Without evidence of a direct threat, the police probably wouldn't do much. I'd seen it happen to friends before, but sitting in my apartment with Roy watching from outside wasn't an option either. I had an idea, a risky one, but maybe our only choice. We need to get him to show his true colors, I said slowly, on record. My plan was simple but terrifying. Mia would call Roy, put him on speaker, and record the conversation. We'd try to get him to admit to the stalking, the threats, everything. In our state, recording phone calls without consent wasn't legal for court purposes, but it might be enough to convince the police to take us seriously. Mia looked scared but nodded. Let's do it. We prepared carefully. I set up my phone to record and coached Mia on what to say. She needed to sound apologetic, like she was considering going back to him. That would get him talking. With shaking hands, she dialed his number. He answered immediately. Where the fuck are you? His voice filled my living room, cold and controlled. Mia glanced at me nervously. I needed space to think, Roy. You were scaring me. I'm scaring you? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're the one sneaking around with my psycho ex. What did she tell you? More lies? She showed me the videos, Mia said quietly, of you with those other women. There was a pause. When Roy spoke again, his voice had that dangerous softness I remembered all too well. Those videos are fake. She's obsessed with me. Always has been. Then why are you outside her apartment right now? Mia asked. Another pause. Longer this time. How did you know that? I can see your car from the window. She lied smoothly. We'd practiced this part, so you are with her. His voice hardened. After everything I told you about her, you betrayed me, Mia. Both of you will regret this. Are you threatening me? Mia's voice shook, but she pushed forward. Because of a conversation? I'm not threatening anyone. Roy backpedaled quickly. I'm worried about you and our baby. She's poisoning your mind against me. The conversation continued for 15 excruciating minutes. Roy alternated between pleading, guilt-tripping, and thinly veiled threats. He never explicitly said he'd hurt us, but the menace in his voice was unmistakable. If you don't come out right now, he finally said, I'll come in there and get you myself. That was enough. I ended the recording and called 911 immediately. Told them there was a man threatening to break into my apartment. Mentioned the recording, the pregnant girlfriend, the history of harassment. The dispatcher promised to send someone right away. We waited in tense silence, jumping at every sound. 5 minutes later, we heard sirens approaching. Through the blinds, I watched Roy's car peel away from the curb, tires squealing against the asphalt. 2 police officers arrived shortly after. 1 male, 1 female. They took our statements separately. I showed them the recording, the threatening texts, the ring footage from months ago. The female officer, Rodriguez, seemed particularly concerned about the pattern of behavior. This isn't the first time we've heard this name, she admitted, looking at her notes. There was another complaint a few weeks ago. Different woman. That was news to me. Another victim I didn't know about. While we were talking, Roy called Mia again. Officer Rodriguez asked if she'd be willing to answer on speaker. Mia agreed, her hands trembling. Where are you? Roy demanded when she picked up. I saw cops at her place. What lies are you telling now? Officer Rodriguez nodded encouragingly at Mia. I'm not lying about anything, Mia said, stronger than before. I'm filing a report about your harassment. Roy exploded. The stream of threats and insults that followed was exactly what the officers needed to hear. When he finally ran out of steam, Officer Rodriguez took the phone. Sir, this is Officer Rodriguez with the city police. We need you to come to the station to discuss these threats you're making. Roy hung up immediately. The officers assured us they would find him. In the meantime, they helped Mia file for an emergency restraining order. The process took hours, but by midnight, we had temporary protection orders for both of us. I let Mia stay at my place that night. Neither of us slept much. We jumped at every noise, convinced Roy would ignore the restraining order. But morning came without incident, sunlight filtering through my blinds like a promise. The next day, Officer Rodriguez called to inform us they'd picked up Roy, trying to enter my apartment building. He was being held on charges of violating the restraining order and making criminal threats. The relief I felt was overwhelming, but it was short-lived. Roy made bail the next day. His first move was subtle. He created fake social media accounts to spread rumors about me and Mia, called us crazy, said we were working together to ruin his life out of jealousy. Some people believed him. Old friends started distancing themselves. I got worried looks at work. Then came the coincidental sightings. Roy showing up at restaurants where I was eating, parking near my office. Nothing technically illegal since he stayed just beyond the 500-foot limit of the restraining order, just close enough to remind me he was watching. Mia was getting the same treatment. He'd drive by her sister's house, send flowers to her workplace with cryptic notes, call from block numbers just to breathe into the phone. We documented everything, every sighting, every suspicious call, every fake account we could trace back to him. It wasn't enough for an arrest, but it was building a case. 3 weeks after Roy made bail, Mia texted me in a panic. Someone had broken into her car. Nothing was stolen, but her pregnancy vitamins had been arranged on the driver's seat to spell liar. The police took a report but said there wasn't enough evidence to prove it was Roy. No cameras had caught the break-in, no fingerprints except Mia's own. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. You think you're helping her? You're making things worse. Back off or else. I showed the message to Officer Rodriguez, who'd become our main contact at the department. She added it to our file but warned us that without direct proof it was from Roy, there wasn't much they could do. We need to be smarter than him, I told Mia over coffee the next day, watching her stir her decaf absently. Set a trap. My plan was risky. We'd let Roy think he was winning, that we were scared and falling apart. Mia would pretend to distance herself from me, making Roy believe his tactics were working. Meanwhile, we'd be gathering evidence. I bought small cameras for my apartment and car, installed a tracking app on my phone that would record my location constantly, got a special case that would record audio all day. Paranoid? Maybe. Necessary? Absolutely. Mia did the same. We coordinated with Officer Rodriguez, who unofficially approved our plan. She couldn't officially endorse entrapment, but she promised to be ready when we had solid evidence. For 2 weeks, we played our roles perfectly. Mia posted vague social media updates about questioning who to trust. I made a show of looking anxious whenever I was in public. We even staged a fight at a cafe where we knew Roy's friends might see us. The bait worked. Roy started getting bolder. The texts became more frequent. The coincidental sightings increased. He clearly thought we were vulnerable and divided. Then came the opportunity we'd been waiting for. Mia received a text from Roy asking to meet and talk things through for the baby's sake. He suggested a park near his apartment, public enough to seem safe, private enough for his purposes. We prepared meticulously. Mia wore a hidden camera disguised as a button on her jacket. I parked nearby with a clear view of the meeting spot. Officer Rodriguez and her partner waited in an unmarked car 2 blocks away, ready to move in if needed. The meeting started exactly as we expected. Roy was all charm and apologies, talked about therapy he wasn't actually attending, promised changes he had no intention of making. Mia played her part perfectly, hesitant but seemingly open to reconciliation. Then she mentioned me, said she wasn't sure what to believe anymore. That's when Roy's mask slipped. That bitch has been poisoning you against me from the start, he snarled, grabbing Mia's wrist hard enough to leave marks. I should have dealt with her properly months ago. Mia tried to pull away. You're hurting me, Roy. You haven't seen anything yet, he hissed, tightening his grip. If you don't come home with me right now, I'll make sure neither of you feel safe ever again. I know where she lives, where you work, where your sister takes her kids to school. That was it. The explicit threat we needed. I texted Officer Rodriguez. Now. Within seconds, police cars converged on the park. Roy tried to switch back to charming mode, but it was too late. The entire conversation was recorded. The bruises forming on Mia's wrist were photographed. The officers found a knife in Roy's pocket that violated the terms of his bail. This time, there would be no easy bail. The district attorney charged him with assault, making criminal threats, stalking, and violating a restraining order. With his previous arrest and the mountain of evidence we'd gathered, he was looking at serious time. I sat with Mia in the police station as she gave her statement. She looked simultaneously exhausted and relieved, one hand resting protectively on her small baby bump. I can't believe it's over, she whispered. Not completely, I cautioned. There's still the trial, but he can't hurt us anymore. She nodded, then surprised me by taking my hand. Thank you for believing me, for helping me when everyone else thought I was overreacting. I squeezed her hand back. That's what he counts on, making us doubt ourselves, making others doubt us too. As we left the station, Officer Rodriguez pulled me aside. You know, most people wouldn't have done what you did, getting involved again after what he put you through. I thought about that on the drive home. Why had I helped Mia when every instinct told me to run in the opposite direction? Maybe because no one had been there to help me see through Roy's manipulation earlier. Maybe because the system makes it so hard for women to prove they're in danger before something terrible happens. Or maybe because sometimes the only way to heal is to make sure no one else gets hurt the way you did. That night, I deleted the last of the fake social media accounts I'd been using to document Roy's harassment, uninstalled the tracking apps, took down the extra cameras. For the first time in months, I slept without checking my locks twice. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Marcus, the Hinge guy I'd had to cancel on during the height of the Roy drama. He was wondering if I'd like to reschedule our date. I smiled and replied yes. Life wasn't perfect. I still jumped sometimes when my phone rang from an unknown number, still checked over my shoulder in parking lots, still had nightmares where Roy was standing over my bed. But Roy was behind bars and Mia was safe. We'd won. As I got ready for my date with Marcus, I realized something important. Roy hadn't broken me after all. He'd tried his best, but in the end, I was stronger than his manipulation, stronger than his threats, strong enough to help someone else escape the same trap, and that felt like the best revenge of all. I got to the courthouse 30 minutes early on the day of Roy's preliminary hearing. The hallways were all polished marble and echoing footsteps, making me feel small and exposed. I spotted Mia sitting on a bench outside the courtroom, nervously scrolling through her phone. Her baby bump was more noticeable now at 12 weeks. Hey, I said, sitting beside her. How are you holding up? She gave me a weak smile and showed me her phone screen. It was a text from a number we didn't recognize. guys. Hope you're ready to be humiliated today. My stomach dropped. When did you get this? This morning. I already sent it to Officer Rodriguez. Mia tucked her phone away. She says they can't prove it's from him since he's in custody, but it's probably one of his friends. I nodded, trying to look calmer than I felt. Roy had been denied bail after the park incident, but he still had people on the outside, friends who thought he was being railroaded by two crazy exes. We'd both received similar messages over the past few weeks. The courtroom doors opened, and we filed in with other people waiting for their cases. Roy's lawyer was already there, a slick-looking guy in an expensive suit who kept checking his Apple Watch. When Roy was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, he didn't look at us at first. Then, just for a second, his eyes met mine. The hatred there made my skin crawl. The hearing itself was quick and formal. The prosecutor presented the evidence, the recordings, the photographs of Mia's bruised wrist, the threatening texts, the knife. Roy's lawyer argued it was all a misunderstanding between consenting adults in a complicated relationship. The judge wasn't buying it. Roy was bound over for trial, with the next court date set for 3 months out. As we left the courtroom, Roy's lawyer approached us in the hallway. Ladies, this doesn't have to get uglier than it already is. My client is willing to consider a plea if you're willing to drop the more serious charges. Officer Rodriguez, who'd attended the hearing to support us, stepped between us and the lawyer. Any plea discussions go through the DA's office, you know that. The lawyer smiled thinly. Of course, just thought I'd save everyone some time. After he walked away, Rodriguez turned to us. Don't worry about him. The evidence is solid. I wanted to believe her, but something about the lawyer's confidence made me uneasy. On the drive home, I couldn't shake the feeling that Roy had something planned. He always did. My suspicions were confirmed the next day when I got a call from my boss. We need to talk about these emails we're receiving, she said, sounding uncomfortable. Someone had created a fake email account in my name and sent inappropriate messages to clients. The emails contained confidential information only someone with inside knowledge would know. My boss was sympathetic but concerned. I know it's not you, she assured me, but we need to address this before it affects the business. I spent hours with our IT department tracking the source of the emails. They were sent through anonymous servers, impossible to trace back to Roy directly, but the timing was too perfect to be coincidence. That same week, Mia lost her job. Her manager claimed it was downsizing, but she overheard comments about not needing the drama. She called me in tears from the parking lot of her former workplace. He's still controlling our lives from jail, she sobbed. How is this possible? I didn't have a good answer. Roy had always been manipulative, but this level of coordination from behind bars seemed almost impossible. I called Officer Rodriguez to update her on the situation. Document everything, she advised. We're building a pattern of harassment that will strengthen the case against him. Easy to say, harder to live through. The next month was a nightmare of small attacks. Someone slashed my tires. Mia's sister received threatening letters about her children. Anonymous reviews appeared online calling my work skills into question. None of it could be directly tied to Roy, but we knew he was behind it somehow. Then came the photos. I opened my email one morning to find dozens of pictures of myself, me getting coffee, walking to my car, through my apartment window. Some were from before Roy's arrest, but others were clearly recent. The message was clear. Even in jail, he could reach us. I forwarded everything to Rodriguez, my hands shaking so badly I could barely use the mouse. She called me immediately. This crosses a line, she said, her voice tight with anger. I'm bringing this to the DA today. These photos prove someone's stalking you on his behalf. 2 days later, the police arrested Roy's roommate, Tyler. They found the original photos on his phone, along with texts from a contraband cell phone Roy had in jail. Tyler confessed during questioning and admitted Roy had been directing him to follow me, take photos, and coordinate with a few other friends to carry out the harassment campaign. The DA added witness intimidation and conspiracy charges to Roy's case. His contraband phone was confiscated, and he was placed in solitary confinement with restricted communications. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. Mia and I met for lunch to celebrate this small victory. She looked better than she had in weeks, some color back in her cheeks. I had my first ultrasound yesterday, she said, sliding a grainy black and white image across the table. It's a girl. I stared at the tiny bean-shaped image, feeling a strange mix of emotions. This child would always connect Mia to Roy in some way, but she seemed determined to create something positive from this nightmare. Have you thought about names? I asked. She nodded. I like Sophia. It means wisdom. It's perfect, I said, and meant it. With Tyler's confession and the new charges, Roy's lawyer suddenly became eager to discuss a plea deal. The DA called us in to discuss the terms. Roy would plead guilty to stalking, assault, and witness intimidation in exchange for dropping some of the lesser charges. He'd serve a minimum of 5 years, with another 5 of probation after release. Most importantly, there would be a lifetime restraining order protecting both of us and Mia's baby. It's a good deal, the DA explained. Trial is always risky, and this guarantees he serves time. Mia looked at me uncertainly. What do you think? Part of me wanted Roy to face a jury, to have everyone hear exactly what he'd done, but another part just wanted this to be over. For Mia to be able to prepare for her baby without looking over her shoulder, for me to move on with my life. I think we should take it, I said finally. 5 years is a long time. Sophia will be in kindergarten before he gets out. Mia nodded, relief washing over her face. I agree. The plea hearing was scheduled for the following week. I spent the days leading up to it in a strange limbo, half expecting another attack from one of Roy's friends, but nothing happened. It seemed like without Roy directing them, his friends had lost interest in his revenge campaign. The morning of the plea hearing, I met Mia for breakfast at a diner near the courthouse. She was wearing a new maternity dress and had cut her hair into a cute bob. Small changes that signaled she was reclaiming her life. I got approved for that apartment near my sister, she told me excitedly. We can move in next month. That's amazing, I said, genuinely happy for her. Over the past months, Mia had gone from victim to survivor before my eyes. She'd found a new job, started therapy, and was building a support system for herself and her baby. At the courthouse, we sat together in the front row. When Roy was brought in, he looked thinner and paler than before. Prison hadn't been kind to him. He avoided looking at us as the judge explained the plea agreement. Do you understand the terms of this agreement? The judge asked him. Roy nodded sullenly. Verbal response for the record, please. Yes, Your Honor, Roy muttered. And how do you plead to the charges as read? There was a moment of tense silence. I held my breath, suddenly afraid he'd change his mind and demand a trial. Guilty, he finally said, the word barely audible. The judge accepted the plea and scheduled the sentencing hearing for the following month. As Roy was led away, he finally looked at us, not with hatred this time, but with something almost like confusion, as if he couldn't understand how his control had slipped away. Outside the courthouse, reporters were waiting. The case had attracted some local media attention due to the elaborate harassment campaign. Officer Rodriguez helped us navigate through them without commenting. It's really over, Mia said as we reached my car. I can't believe it. Not quite, I reminded her. There's still sentencing, but we both knew the hard part was done. Roy had admitted his guilt. He would serve time. We had won. The month before sentencing passed quickly. I started dating Marcus more seriously. He was patient with my trust issues and never complained when I needed to check in with Mia or talk through my anxiety. He even helped me install better security cameras at my apartment, understanding my need for safety without making me feel paranoid. Mia found a doula who specialized in helping trauma survivors through pregnancy and birth. She started making a nursery in her new apartment, painting the the walls a soft yellow. I helped her assemble a crib one weekend, both of us laughing at how complicated the instructions were. At the sentencing hearing, we both gave victim impact statements. I went first, describing how Roy's actions had affected every aspect of my life, how I still checked under my car every morning, still slept with my phone in my hand, still flinched at unexpected noises. Mia spoke about her hopes for her daughter, how she wanted Sophia to grow up feeling safe and respected, how Roy's behavior had shown her exactly what she didn't want in her child's life. The judge listened attentively, then addressed Roy directly. Mr. Sir Patterson, your calculated campaign of harassment shows a disturbing level of manipulation and disregard for others. The court cannot ignore the psychological trauma you've inflicted. She sentenced him to 6 years, 1 year more than the minimum required by the plea deal. As Roy was led away for the last time, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Not completely. I knew that kind of trauma doesn't disappear overnight, but enough to stand straighter, breathe deeper. Outside, it was raining lightly. Mia and I stood under the courthouse overhang, watching people rush by with umbrellas. What now? She asked softly. I thought about it for a moment. Now we live, not as victims, not as survivors, just as ourselves. She smiled, resting a hand on her growing belly. I'd like that. 6 months later, I held baby Sophia in the hospital while Mia napped in her bed nearby. The tiny girl had her mother's dark curls and a fierce grip on my finger. Marcus sat beside me, watching with a gentle smile. She's perfect, he whispered. I nodded, carefully adjusting the pink blanket around Sophia's shoulders. In her peaceful face, I saw no trace of Roy, just new beginnings, fresh possibilities. My phone buzzed with a text from Kara. How's our newest little warrior doing? I smiled and took a photo of Sophia to send back. Kara had been right all those months ago when she said Roy was good at being whoever someone wanted him to be. But in the end, we had been better at being ourselves. Our real, imperfect, resilient selves. As I handed Sophia back to a waking Mia, I realized something important. Roy hadn't just been exposed as a cheater and an abuser. He'd been revealed as fundamentally weak. All his manipulation, all his threats, all his attempts to control us had ultimately failed, because the truth, once spoken, has a power all its own. I still check my locks twice at night, still keep my location shared with trusted friends, still have days when anxiety grips me without warning. But those moments no longer define me. They're just echoes of a story that's already ended. And the new story, the one with Marcus, with my friendship with Mia and Sophia, with the career I'm rebuilding, that one's just beginning.